Welcome to Quora Anonymous. If this is your first time and you like the video, please like and subscribe. If you would like to read along, turn on closed captioning with the 3 dots in the upper right corner. Now, let's begin. What is your dirtiest sexual experience as an adult? Short answer: I had sex with my girlfriend's twin sister. Long answer: I was in relationship with her for 4 years. She is living with me in my apartment, since we work in same city. Her sister knows we are in relationship. She is with their parents who are 60 miles away from us. She visit us twice in a month, and stay with us. Me and my girlfriend have sex frequently. We cuddle each other daily in bed. That week we got different shifts. She had morning shift, and I had night shift. We couldn't have time together that week. On the weekend night, I entered my apartment, and got freshened up, and went inside my room. She was sleeping in bed half naked, only panty. I went near her and kissed her. Pressed her boobs, and then she woke up. She was hesitant at first, didn't speak anything. But she obliged, as soon as I put my hand on her vagina. She started making out with me like never ever. We finished our foreplay and started penetration. We were like 2 hours having sex, and I got a call from my GF. I was shocked seeing her name on screen. I stopped my action, and showed the phone to her. She was smiling sheepishly. I was feeling awkward and got up. Talked to my GF. She told she was given double shift. It will be 4 hours more, until she is back home. Call was cut. My GF sister came, and passionately kissed me. I tried to stop, but she forced me to bed. She silenced me, and told me let's talk after we finish. I half-mindedly accepted it, and had fun with her. After that we had our discussion about that. She told that she liked me so much. She went with the flow. I asked you cold, at least already told me that you are not my GF. I told my GF what happened. She was cool with it. I was like, what? She knew her sister wanted me, and she planned it with her. I was outrageous. She then told me we don't mind sharing you even after marriage. I don't care what you think. Look at her. She is just replica of me. You love me, right? Then love her too. She is my sister and I accept her to have sex with you. I was like both happy and confused. I never even heard anything like this. This thing was never told to her parents. Elder one married me after 2 years and their parents moved with us too. We live in same house and younger one refused marriage, and had fun with me. Even their parents saw us, and thought that I'm being with the elder one. Even kissed me in front of them. Younger one caught up with one man of younger age, and married him after 5 years of my marriage life. Those 7 years I had sex with both of them. Made both pregnant. Still she used to have sex with me, if she gets chance. I feel bit awkward, but after some time it goes with the flow. This is the dirtiest secret of my life. The worst thing is, that even their parents can't even differentiate their daughters, when they were pregnant. I had a brief affair with an adult teacher, when I was 14. And I loved it. I'm writing anonymously for obvious reasons. It was illegal, and though a very long time ago, where I come from there's no statute of limitations. I would not want to get her into any trouble. Some people will also no doubt judge her badly, and say I was a victim. Well, I was not a victim. I was a willing party, and while I was certainly pretty innocent at the time, I cherish the memory, and would not hesitate to do the same again, if I could go back. People might also say that, if I had been a girl, it would have been different, and unquestionably abuse. Maybe, I'm not sure. One thing's certain, I couldn't get pregnant, and maybe that's what it comes down to. The teacher in question was a trainee. She came to our school for 1 term as part of her teacher training. I'll refer to her as Society of Jesus. She was probably only about 19 or 20. She was really pretty, and a lot of the boys, and girls for all I know, immediately got a crush on her. She also had a very soft voice with a West Country, England, which seemed very sexy to us. She also had this habit of coming and sitting on your desk when she was talking to you, making very direct eye contact. It was hard not to blush and stammer when she did this. She knew exactly the effect she had on us, and seemed to do it on purpose. The very tight jeans she wore didn't help either. As 14-year-olds, we were hormonal as you like. You had to be careful to stop yourself thinking about sex even for a second, otherwise you'd get an erection, unbidden. A lot of the time this could be hidden with a bit of squirming, and the odd quick hand movement to backquote straighten things out. But in Society of Jesus' class, the erection would start almost before class began, and last all the way through. Anyway, I had this paper round after school. It didn't pay much, but it gave me a bit of pocket money. Using my bike, it was pretty easy for the most part, but there was one street with a long row of low-rise, 4-story blocks of flats I didn't enjoy. I had to post the papers through every door individually, and it involved a lot of going up and down stairs. It was only the last 20 or so addresses on my round, but it took half the time. Still, it kept me very fit, and I was into athletics at the time. One day I was running up the stairs in one of the blocks when the door ahead of me opened, and out stepped Society of Jesus. She recognized me straight away, and I said hello. We made a bit of idle chit-chat for a few minutes. She was on her way out, but said next time I delivered the paper I should knock and come in for a drink. It was near the end of my round, so the idea of a cool drink and a bit of time in her company seemed like a nice idea. I said I would. It never occurred to me for a second that anything would happen, but it certainly fueled my fantasies each night before I went to sleep. My round was only 2 nights a week, so I had to cool my jets for a few days. The next time we had a lesson with Society of Jesus, she returned my exercise book that she'd marked some homework in, with a little note in the corner. 57, don't forget 57 was her flat. Goodness. My heart was pounding when I saw that, and I could hardly look at her. For the first time I thought maybe she did have more in mind, but I dismissed it as schoolboy wishful thinking, and tried to remain calm. Next paper round, I finished in double quick time, and left her block until last. My heart was totally in my mouth, because by this time my crush on her was overwhelming, and even though I dismissed any thought of anything happening between us, just the thought of being in her flat had that effect on me. So I timidly knocked on her door, sweating profusely, partly with the effort of doing my round so quickly, and partly with the heat of the moment. She smiled and let me in, remarking that I looked hot, as in temperature, backquote hot as a euphemism for sexy wasn't really a thing then. Would I like a drink? Yes please. It was awkward, I didn't know what to say. Looking around, her flat was furnished fairly poorly, with second-hand stuff and a lot of boxes everywhere. Later she told me she was only a student, and was here temporarily. I already got disappointed at that. I hadn't realized that was what she was until then. I thought she was a full-time teacher. Anyway, she made me and herself some squash, and we sat up at a sort of breakfast bar thing, side by side on bar stools. At first we made a bit of small talk, about school, about things I liked and disliked. It was mostly her doing all the talking. I was flummoxed and tongue-tied. She laughed and told me to relax, that she wouldn't bite. She put her hand on my arm. It struck me as a very warm and inviting thing to do, and I immediately relaxed a bit. The image of her hand on my arm is so vivid in my memory. She had very soft skin, small hands, and very neatly applied light pink nail polish. I was wearing my school uniform, which was a dark green woolen jumper, white shirt and black trousers. As she took her hand away she crossed her legs in such a way that I could see her knickers under her short skirt. After a few seconds she quickly uncrossed them and smoothed the skirt down, as if she'd done it by accident. I was probably staring, or trying not to, but I knew she knew I'd seen. At that moment I blushed, and then I could feel my cock stiffening. Oh no. The last thing I needed. It was excruciatingly embarrassing, not to mention painful, as the way I was sitting meant there was no space for it to expand into. Probably to save my embarrassment, she stood up and collected our empty glasses and starting fussing about in the kitchen. I took the opportunity to straighten out my trousers to accommodate my stiff cock. After a couple more minutes I started to make my excuses and said I should be getting home. She smiled and said okay, but said I was welcome next time and maybe we should make it a regular thing. I mumbled okay as she showed me out, her hand resting on my arm, and did I imagine it, or did she give it a little squeeze? I biked home as fast as I could, still rock hard, ran upstairs to my room, and had a furious wank. I must have come in about 20 seconds. Next time, I knocked with a little more confidence. I'd seen her in class once or twice since last time, and she had been very friendly and gave me a lot of what I read as encouraging smiles. I didn't have the sense to see if anyone else got this treatment. I thought it was all for me. This time she was wearing a long dress and gown and had her hair tied up in a towel. She asked me to excuse her, but she was going out later and had just washed her hair. I said it was okay. She made me a drink as before, and we sat in the same places at the breakfast bar. I did feel more relaxed this time, and was able to make a bit more conversation. This time the talk was a bit more personal. She asked me about some of the others in my class, and whether we talked about her. I didn't quite know what to say, but she smiled, and said she'd noticed a few of the boys seemed to have a bit of a crush on her. I agreed that it was true. Then she said, so what about you? Again, embarrassed blushes, and again, the hand on my arm. Well, that answers that then, she said. The next bit is a bit of a blur in my mind. I've replayed it so often as part of my fantasies that the difference between them and what really happened is lost in time. But I think she let her hand slip off my arm and rest on my bulging, uncomfortably restricted cock. I think she said something like there was something there that needing taking care of. It sounds like a corny line from a porno, but at that time I'd never ever seen a porno, so I wouldn't have known. I was frozen to the spot, hardly dared breathe. I wasn't sure if I was scared that she'd do something, or scared that she wouldn't. She rubbed my cock a bit through my trousers, then said she could "help me out strictly on one condition." I stammered, what? That I did not say a word of this to anyone, and especially not go bragging about it to my mates. It had to be strictly private between the two of us, and at school it would be as if nothing had ever happened. I agreed. She came closer, standing up. She smelled wonderful, so fresh after her bath, and she had a very light fruity perfume on. The towel on her head came undone and fell to the floor, and her long slightly wet hair fell down around my face. With her hand still gently rubbing my cock, she bent down and we kissed. I'd never really kissed anyone sexually before, though I had dreamed of it so many times. I responded as best I could, and it was wonderful. Her lips were so soft and warm. Then I felt her probe a little with her tongue, and I let her in. It was the most incredible feeling. Suddenly I felt myself jerk in my pants, and come in an instant, with no warning. Arg. She broke off and laughed, but in a gentle way, saying back "oops." I blushed again, and she reassured me that it was no problem. She'd get me a tissue and we could start again, now that the urgency was gone. She undid my trousers and pulled them down, and there was a big wet patch on my underpants. She pulled those over my still erect cock. It never went down for 1 second, and down, and there I stood with my flagpole at full attention, dripping cum. She took it in her mouth and started to gently suck it clean. It was the most exquisite sensation I had ever felt. I'd read about women taking cum in their mouths in magazines, but there was still something illicit and slightly "dirty" about it to me, so I was thrilled. Luckily I was able to get used to the beautiful feeling of it before I got overexcited again, so I was able to hold off coming again for a good 2 or 3 minutes. To me that seemed like a pretty good run at the time. As I was about to come again I thought she might not want it full in the mouth, so I tried to warn her and pull out, but she wasn't having any of it, and took the full load, swallowing immediately. After that I still didn't really lose my erection. Oh, the wonders of youth. But we cuddled up and kissed some more. It was a bit awkward, both sort of half sitting on the bar stool chair. She opened her dressing gown. She was naked underneath. I looked down naturally, and she had a big curly bush of reddish brown hair. This was the 1970s. Hairy was normal. She took my hand and guided it to her cunt, and she was dripping wet. I was surprised at its heat. I'd imagined touching a pussy so many times, but hadn't thought of that. I massaged it a bit with my fingers, not really knowing what I was supposed to be doing. She started to guide me more towards the top, not so hard, back and forth, lightly, not too direct, not so hard. Soon she was panting as she kissed me harder and harder, then came. It was more or less her masturbating herself with my fingers, but it seemed to work. The smell of her on my fingers was wonderful too. I didn't wash that hand that evening. After we both calmed down a bit, she told me I ought to go. Remember, not a word. If I hear you've said anything, you'll never have this again. But if you keep quiet, your paper round will be the best nights of the week. Or words to that effect. She also said that as my teacher, she would be delighted to show me how to do everything to please her, and in return she would do everything I dreamed of. Well, that's exactly what happened. Backquote Maggie May was a big hit at the time, and the lyrics seemed to be highly suggestive of our affair, so we played it a lot, and it became our song, or at least I thought of it that way. If I hear it now, it still makes my smile from ear to ear. I never did say a word, at least not for about 20 years. I did tell a classmate about it after we met up again after all that time, but I'm pretty sure he didn't believe me. I'd see her twice a week, and she really did teach me everything. We quickly graduated from the breakfast bar to her bedroom, and in a very short time I had my first fuck. Naturally, my performance was rather brief that first time, and for quite a few more times too, but what was great about her was that she never minded, just said it was to be expected, and that we'd try again soon. At that age I just never got soft, so she didn't have to wait long. As the weeks went by I got more and more skilled and lasted much longer. She always came to, and said that she never faked it. Such a possibility was a preoccupation at the time, apparently. I doubt if I could have told the difference, but I believed her anyway. She really did teach me everything. Oral, anal, just once, using toys on her, even a few kinks. All through this backquote affair she reiterated the importance of keeping it private between us. I certainly didn't want it to stop. She also made it very clear, but in a very friendly and pleasant way, that it was not love, that I shouldn't fall for her, to think of it as training that someone special to me would benefit from later. And as such I took that on board. I guess at the beginning I thought it must be in love, but that feeling subsided quickly the more we had sex. I really liked her, and really enjoyed her company and what we did together, but I stopped crushing on her. At the same time I thought it would go on indefinitely, so I was rather shocked when one day, after we'd fucked, she said that she was leaving the school and would be going back to college in a week or so. I suddenly felt quite gutted, and I think she sensed that. She said she would be able to meet one last time next week, and that would be our last goodbyes. That week was her last at school, but I believed I had that one last night to look forward to, so it passed me by. But the next paper round night, when I went to her flat and knocked on the door, there was no answer. I knocked loudly, and for some time, thinking she might be having a bath or something and couldn't hear. But the noise roused a neighbor across the hall, and he came out and said she's gone, left at the weekend. I felt momentarily devastated, and went home in a very subdued mood, almost in tears. I didn't even know what college she went to, she'd never told me. For a few days I brooded about it, trying to plot how I could track her down and continue things, but it gradually dawned on me that the ending had been entirely deliberate. That she had known I would have felt that way, and would have cried, or made a fuss at the end. She wanted to cut it off cleanly, and she had. As I realized this, I actually felt better about it. She'd done the right thing. I had not long turned 15 by then, but I felt like a man. teacher had taught me, she'd come and done her job. My confidence was totally transformed after that. I never had any problem talking to girls, or getting tongue-tied when I liked someone, or being all hesitant if I wanted to ask someone out. That confidence in itself seemed to make me attractive to girls, even though I never thought of myself as anything special in the looks or body department. So far from looking back on it as an adult taking advantage of a child for her own selfish pleasure, I truly believe she wanted to help me become that confident person. And I'm truly grateful. It was wonderful, and while it also includes a lot of embarrassing element, I can see that was just my inexperience and naivety. I'm sure she also had her own selfish reasons as well, but she is more than welcome to them. I'm not saying that the same would apply in every similar situation. I find the idea of an adult taking advantage of a child utterly abhorrent. But even in my innocence I was 100% willing. If I hadn't been, it wouldn't have happened, I'm sure of it. I feel blessed by the experience. Thank you, Society of Jesus. If you made it this far, you owe it to yourself to subscribe.